my life started
just like any other. I had just gotten to history class and was pulling my textbooks out of my backpack. I had barely cracked open my book when a voice came through on the intercom. It was Mr. Darcy, the school principal. He told us that the entire school was on lockdown and that we needed to barricade ourselves in our classrooms. I could easily tell through the fear in his voice that this was not a drill. All of us looked at each other in silence and shock for a moment before we jumped into action. Our teacher, Mr. McGregor, raced to the door and locked it. My friend Ella turned off the lights, terrified. We had no idea who was out there or if they wanted to kill us. I texted a few of my friends in other classrooms to see if they were okay. No one had any updates about what was going on. Then Mr. Darcy got a shocking message from one of the receptionists in the front office. He explained to us that 2 convicts had escaped the local prison and had entered the school to hide. They were in prison for some pretty horrific crimes, so there was no telling what they may do. Worst of all, they were both armed with a knife. We were all afraid for our lives. All we could do was remain as quiet as we could and pray that we would make it home today unharmed. The minutes ticked by and still nothing happened. Then, to our complete horror, we heard screaming from the hallway. It was a girl's voice that I didn't recognize. She was pleading with somebody and begging them to let her go. I wanted to cover my ears, afraid of what I might hear next. Then there was a loud bang, and then silence. About 30 minutes later, Mr. Darcy came back on the intercom to tell everyone that the school had been secured and it was safe to leave the school and head home. Lots of parents had already found out about the situation and were in the parking lot waiting to pick up their kids. We later learned on the news that the convicts were threatening a girl who was hiding in the bathroom. When the SWAT team caught up with them, one of the convicts dropped his weapon and backed away from the girl, but the other refused. He was shot and taken to the hospital, and the other convict was handcuffed and taken back into custody. Luckily, no one was injured that day, but none of us, especially the girl in the bathroom, will forget what happened.
And then Grandma told me one of her secrets, and I was better in 10 minutes.
One day I was sitting in calculus class trying to endure another boring lecture. It was the last period before Christmas break, and I could barely wait for the bell to ring so I could go home and relax after a long, stressful semester. I was zoned out as I daydreamed about my plans for Christmas break, when all of a sudden I was brought back to the present moment by some loud bangs in the hallway. At first, we thought there were fireworks. Maybe the seniors were doing their senior prank early. But when we heard awful screams coming from outside our classroom door, the realization set in that the bangs were gunshots. Our teacher, Mrs. Young, locked the door and turned off the lights. We all huddled in a corner of the room that was not visible from the window, just as we had practiced during drills. For a while, we could hear a lot of yelling and hustling and bustling from outside the door, as well as a few more gunshots. But after a few minutes, there was only silence. My heart was beating so hard and fast that I was sure that everyone around me could hear it. But they only sat quietly, terror visible in their eyes. I thought about texting my mom to tell her I loved her, but I was afraid to move a single inch. Then, from outside the hallway, we could hear a person screaming and banging on classroom doors. He claimed he had a gun and wasn't afraid to use it. After getting no response from that classroom, he moved on down the line and began banging on the next door. We then heard more gunshots ring out, this time closer to our classroom. One of the girls began to cry, but Mrs. Young quickly shushed her. We all looked around at each other, trying to figure out what to do. We were like sitting ducks, with nowhere to run. I couldn't believe this. Here I was only in high school, and my life might be coming to an end in a few short moments. I couldn't help but think of all the things I hadn't gotten a chance to do yet. I had never driven a car, traveled outside the country, or even been out on a date. As the bangs and yelling grew closer and closer, I closed my eyes and prayed that God would spare my life and that the authorities would capture whoever the gunman was before he hurt anyone else. Maybe with the lights out in the classroom, the gunman would think that there was no one in the classroom. I could hear the gunman reach the classroom next to us. There was more screaming and another round of gunshots. Our classroom was next. I held my breath in anticipation, and Mrs. Young gestured for us to get down. We squeezed against the wall and flattened ourselves against the floor. Even though I knew what was coming, I couldn't help but jump when I heard the gunman banging on our door so hard that I thought for sure it would break down. The gunman yelled for us to open the door, but no one dared to move a muscle. He let out a repulsive laugh, and all of a sudden I recognized the voice. It was a kid named Toby. I had a few classes with him throughout the years. He was a pretty quiet kid who sometimes got made fun of for his weight. Was this his way of getting revenge? Suddenly, bullets came flying in through the door, raining down in our classroom. I watched one go right through Mrs. Young's computer screen. Others smacked into the wall. I and a few of my classmates couldn't help but scream in terror. Due to the angle, the bullets luckily couldn't reach us. Toby moved away from our classroom door and made his way down the hallway. We all looked around, shocked to find that everyone was completely unhurt. Suddenly we heard more yelling in the hallways, but not from Toby. It was the police instructing Toby to drop his weapon. There was one final gunshot, and then silence. After an hour of horror, we were finally escorted out of our classroom and out of the school. We found out that Toby had been shot by police, but that the other 5 students that had been shot were expected to survive their injuries. To this day, no one knows for sure what made Toby do such a terrible thing. I was in my first year of teaching at the local high school when I had one of the scariest experiences of my life. It was my planning period, so I was alone in my classroom grading papers while sneaking in a bit of lunch. The kids in lunch A were making their way to the cafeteria, so there was a lot of noise in the hallway. All of a sudden I heard 3 sharp bangs and then tons of screaming. I received a notification on my phone that there was an active shooter in the building. I sprinted to the door and flung it open. There was mass chaos in the hallways. Papers were flying and students were running in all different directions. I began yelling at them to come into my classroom. One student after another entered the classroom until I probably had more than 30 kids huddled in the back. Once I didn't see anyone in the hallway, I closed the door and locked it. I then shut off the lights and directed a few of the male students nearby to help me barricade the door. I then joined the rest of the students at the back of the room and told everyone to stay as quiet as possible. The minutes ticked by and there was nothing but silence. Surely the police were here by now. I tried my best to keep the students calm as we waited. I then got another notification on my phone from the school administration. They had been able to get a description of the alleged shooter. It was a male student with a black hoodie with a skull on it. He was wearing bright red Nike sneakers. I was about to read the description aloud to the students to see if anyone had seen someone today that fit that description. Maybe we could pass the information on to the police. But just as I opened my mouth to speak, I noticed something that caused a chill to go down my spine. There, in the corner of my classroom, was a dark-haired boy with a black hoodie. The sweatshirt had a gray skeleton emblem on the front, and he was wearing bright red shoes. He appeared somber and sat away from the other students, just staring at the ground. My heart was pounding, and I was terrified, but I couldn't let it show that I knew the alleged shooter was in the classroom. So I tried to not let my expression change. I simply grabbed my phone and sent a quick text to the principal, letting them know the situation. In only minutes, we heard loud banging at the door. It was the SWAT team. They told us to slowly exit the classroom with our hands raised. We unbarricaded the door and did as we were told. The boy who fit the description attempted to run, but was quickly detained by an officer. It was later reported that the boy had mental health problems and went to a treatment center. Luckily, the 3 shots he fired didn't make contact with anyone. I still think about the shooter and hope that he got the help he needed. Have you ever been in a situation like this? Drop a comment and don't forget to like and subscribe for more terrifying.
Yeah, what's up, Mom?